Hi guys, trust you're keeping well. So if you would remember some days ago, we actually treated the data validation subject on Excel, and I was able to show you how to actually restrict the kind of data that clients or your users can actually input into your sheet or into particular cells, rows, or column, however you want to configure it. But there is a particular requirement that came to mind that I would like us to treat, and that is, what if you actually have a cell and you do not want repetition on that particular column. So imagine you have a column. Let's say I have a column, okay, and I do not want repetition on this column. So if someone has already entered A, I don't want another person to be able to enter A, so that there won't be repetition. Particular use case scenario is if you're probably using Excel for your invoicing. So your invoice numbers would always need to be unique, or your receipt numbers will always need to be unique. So you cannot afford to actually give two receipt numbers for two different, you cannot afford to give the same receipt number to different customers in order to avoid reconciliation issues. So how can we actually put such a control in Excel using data validation, such that when you already enter a value on that column, you are unable to, or another person cannot enter the same value on another row. So let me show you how you can quickly do that. Let's call this column, let's call it we can call it purchase invoice. So let's call this the purchase invoice column, and this, so you can have other columns also, maybe names of customers and things, but I'll focus on this because this is the column I want to work on. So let's imagine our first invoice is with number 11111. Okay, this is in percentage. Let's change that. Okay, so let's imagine it's in 11111. So I don't want another person to be able to enter 11111 again. Okay, so what I would basically do is, one, I'll select this column or this row, however I want it to be. Let's select this row. Then I'll come to data. Under data validation, I'll click on data validation. Okay, then here under this allow, remember this where we restrict values. So okay, enter whole numbers, enter dates. We are now going to pick custom. So custom allows you, if you remember when we did conditional formatting, we were able to show that you can use your formula using custom formulas. You can actually use your formula to restrict how a particular cell behaves, or to correct, to manipulate how a particular cell behaves. So in this case, we will do the same thing here. Only that this time we're going to write a formula, and we'll be using the count if. I'm sure you quite remember the count if function. We usually use it to count, do count with conditions. So the count function, you use it to count numerical values. You use the count if functions to count whether the cell is empty or is not empty, or an empty cell. So whether it's numerical or not, alphabet and co. Count would count it. But count if, we use it to count with a condition. In this case, what condition I want to count is, I want you to count. So I'll click here. Let me say I want this to happen from the first 50. Okay, yeah. Then I'll say check the value, comma here. I'll close my bracket and I'll say is equals to 1. You remember how countif works. So what it's trying to do here is trying to count the number of times the item in column A, or in cell A2, the item in cell A2, the number of times is appearing between cell A2 and A50, and we're not giving it an instruction that it should be equals to 1. Okay, so if it's greater than 1, that would definitely raise an exception. But because I'm just doing from A2 to A50, then I'll make this like an absolute reference, by pressing F4. F4 will make it absolute reference. So we're saying count the number of times the content of cell A2 is occurring within cell A2 to A50. Okay, so you say okay. Okay, we've already said should be equals to 1, then we press okay. Then what we do is, because remember our formula, although A2 to A50 is absolute, our A2 criteria is actually not absolute, so I have to drag it down to other cells. Let me drag it to like cell 20. Okay, let's delete this. Okay, now if I now press 1 2, let's say that's the invoice number, and I come back, I press 1 2 again, can you notice what happens here? So immediately it gives me an error to say the value you've entered is not valid. Okay, but if I press 1 1, it goes, right? If I press 1 0, it's fine. But immediately I press F2, it's not fine, or 1 2 is not fine. Okay, if I come back here and say 10 again, 10 2 cannot enter here because we already have a 10. So if I try 12, of course it won't work. But if you try another value, even non-numerical values, it will go through. It will just not allow you. So anything you've entered here or here, okay, or let's say 11, no, because 12 already exists. So you can, that continues to happen until you get to 20. Remember, we dragged our formula up to 20. So in 21, because I didn't drag formula up to there, if I press 1 2, it will still go through. Okay, now that's because I actually restricted it to 20. I dragged it to 20, but I might as well just drag it to the 50 where I did, where I actually restricted the formula to work. So here you can put 89, but 21, 12 again, no, 21 again, no. Okay, but remember now, look at this error it's showing. It's not really a very, how do I put it? The error is not very clear. And remember, when we did the data validation, I showed you how you can actually customize this error. So let's quickly do that. I'll come back here and then come back to data validation. Under error message, okay, I'll say duplicate invoice number. Okay, then I can say the invoice number you are trying to impute already exists. Please try a different number. Okay, so it should be on stop because we don't want the user to continue if it's a duplicated value. So it will be on stop. Remember, you have stop, you have warning, and you have information. Okay, so this is it. I'll just click OK. Now if I come here, let's drag this and clear this. I did the formula here, so I can drag it down to any number I want. I'm dragging to 22 here. So if I say 12 here and I say 12 again, duplicated invoice number, the invoice number you're trying to impute already exists. Please try a different number. So now you know you are able to control this particular column to ensure that when you already have a value, the value is not repeated in another cell. So you don't have to drag, check up to start checking, or especially if you have a long data set, you don't have to, first scroll up to first check or be searching like, have you used this number before? Is this number valid, or things like that. With this, you're able to control your kind of input, and you're able to, ensure that a user does not put in a duplicated invoice number in this particular cell. Hope you understand. If you have any question, please reach out to us either on our YouTube channel or on our Twitter page. We'll be glad to assist with this. Thank you.